This Dicebreaker video is sponsored by Wild Bills. Ditch the manufactured flavors. Your taste buds deserve better. Treat yourself to Wild Bill's premium handcrafted soda pop. Mouth-watering beverages that allow you to escape to the most interesting places imaginable. Cheers to refusing the drink from the mainstream. Cheers to kick-ass canned. Cheers to being veteran-owned and operated. At Wild Bills, flavor isn't everything. It's the only thing. Use discount code CHEERS15 for 15% off your first order.
From a simple mathematics learning tool to the universal symbol for role-playing games, the polyhedral dice set has had quite the history. Most would have had their first experience with the set when they made their tentative early steps in Dungeons & Dragons. Opening the starter box, they observed these strange little clicky-clacky math rocks, covered in strange angles and ever-increasing numerical values. For a lot of new TTRPG players, these weird shapes are a big red flag when sitting down to first learn the game. They absolutely scream, this is going to be complicated, but actually, dice are pretty simple things to wrap your head around. You give them a roll, and you get a random number. That's it. They're randomizers, things that you use to see what happens next when the answer is unclear. The only real differences between them then are their shapes and the amount of sides they have. The range of numbers you can roll. So maybe there's no point in ranking them? Maybe they're all equally good at what they do, just in different situations? Wrong! There is an objective ranking to these platonic solids, and we will be settling this once and for all today, as I rank every polyhedral die from the absolute worst to the true king of dice. This video is my life's work and is a piece of absolute non-fiction. There will be no opinions stated in this video, only cold, hard, objective facts. As every YouTube commenter knows, opinion has no place in true critique and journalism. I will be summoning truth from the realms of pure information. All dice will be assessed in a wide variety of categories, including aesthetics, design, safety, rollability, accessibility, probability, legibility, and much, much more. These dice will be put through rigorous testing and appraisal. This is the definitive dice ranking. Let us begin. Well, let's start with the triangular abomination that is the D4. The pyramid, a strong and sturdy shape. It's lasted for centuries. It is the definitive way in which to pile rocks on top of each other and have them not fall over for a very long time. The structures are so impressive that a small sect of gullible people have convinced themselves that they were constructed by a powerful race of extraterrestrial beings and not just copious amounts of slave labor. It is a powerful shape with a strong heritage. How disappointing then that its dice adaptation is such a colossal failure. Let's begin with rollability, the cardinal factor of any die worth its weight in plastic, and the D4's greatest failure. This is not a die. It does not roll. If you are lucky, you can throw it in a way that it bounces as it hits the table, and yet still, the motion of this object spinning around on the table is one of the most unsatisfying sights in tabletop gaming. A disappointment that is only matched by the abhorrent way in which you must read the result once the roll is finished. Consider the die and its functions. Think upon the actions taken to use this object. It is rolled across the table, and then when the die has come to a full stop, you may read its result by looking at the face that sits flat on the topmost part of the die. An incredibly simple pair of actions that the D4 somehow fails to deliver on both. When reading the D4, the only flat side on the object is face down on the table. This leaves the dice maker in a horrendous position where they must either write the results of the roll on every side of each point, or even worse, on every flat edge that touches the table. A dilemma in which each option is so equally terrible that there isn't even a universal consensus on it, leaving those who have rolled an unfamiliar D4 not even sure which part of the die they're supposed to be looking at after it limply tumbles onto its side. Not that the result will ever be anything to write home about. 1 to 4 is a truly meagre amount of options. It's 2 sides away from a coin flip. The D4 is antagonistic in its design. It is hostile architecture meant to warn humans away. This is not a die of honor. Even aesthetically, it fails its own near-perfect base. The tetrahedron is an incredibly sturdy and imposing shape. It should stand tall and proud amongst the other dice, and yet every single face of this die is splattered with 3 completely different results at uncomfortable angles. The time it takes for your brain to perceive either one of these things is damning, but try and roll a whole set and you'll spend minutes trying to tot up the results. The d4 is a failure. It might serve reasonably well as a counter that is manually turned, but this is not a ranking of the best counters, it is a ranking of the best dice, and a die this is not. That's right, D&D nerds, where are your 9-point grid-aligned gods now? The poster boy of the world's biggest role-playing game and largest numerical variant of the group, and yet here it sits, a mere rung above the bottom. Pathetic. The d20 is a classic example of how tradition can stand in the way of progress. Arbitrarily chosen as the most prevalent die in Dungeons & Dragons rule set, and now it sits upon a lofty pedestal above far more competent dice. A pretender to the throne. The d20 is simply too round, too ostentatious in its number of sides. Is it a die or is it a marble? Tough to say, as it rolls off the side of the table for the 5th time, forcing you to yet again ask if you can keep your crit when it's technically lying underneath the DM's arse. Rollability, you see, is not a scale in which more always equals better. A die's roll must be measured and controlled, not flying off into another player's character sheet. At least though it rolls better than a d4, but I mean that's not saying much. Too many sides is not just an issue when it comes to rolling, however. The probabilities of a d20 are not unpredictable, but definitely encumbered. Asking someone to work out how much harder it is to roll a 16 over a 12 just doesn't make instant sense in someone's head. It's inaccessible. Creates another logical hurdle for those who are mathematically challenged to overcome before understanding the roll that sits ahead of them. It also just feels crap to aim for a 17 and roll a 2. There's so much swing between each of the results, it's too granular. Legibility is also a problem, as you can probably expect from a die that asks you to print 20 different numbers on its sides. The arrogance. Do yourself a favour and stay clear of this false prophet of a die. Rise above the dragon's propaganda. Finally, we're moving towards some of the better dice on offer, though the d12 is very much still not perfect. A lot of the problems inherent in the d20 are still present in the d12. Its ball-like structure leads to some uncontrollable rolls, there's still a large number of sides, and having to place a double-digit number on that smaller surface is always going to be difficult to pass. All the things that the d20 does, the d12 does better. It's a more satisfying shape, more solid. The roll has a nice bounce to it, and when it lands, there's a big enough hard flat side on the bottom to make its result feel definitive. 12 is still a bit of a random number of sides, but at least it's less than 20, and a dozen is actually something I've heard of. And you know what? There's a certain charm to the d12. The football-like pentagram sides belie a Jack the Lad nature. You aren't going to use me very much, but I'm a pleasing presence. Actually, no, scratch that. That was an opinion. Only facts may exist in journalism. I'm turning into one of those SWJs or whatever they're called that the internet has told me are bad. Bring on the next die! Alright, top 3 now. Time to get serious. And the d10 is a serious die. No nonsense. Calculating your percentage of success on this bad boy is an absolute breeze. Need to roll a 6 or lower? 60%. Done. Now that's accessible. That's a die that respects your time. 10 is a beautifully round number. There's a decent amount of room for variance, but you don't add so many sides that it becomes tiresome to figure out. Just for this reason alone, the die deserves respect. The same respect that it shows you. But we have to talk about the visuals of this thing. Is there no better shape with 10 sides? What is this double circus tent? It looks as though it should be spun like a Beyblade. And despite having less sides than the d12, those sides feel even smaller. I wish there was a better way of making d10s because I genuinely love the clean-cut nature of having a 1 in 10 chance for each number you can roll, but the shape of this thing leaves a lot to be desired. Maybe we should just say screw it and turn the d10 into a spinning top. Despite all that though, this is still a solid die. It still rolls relatively well, and the strange way it topples onto one side means it tends to finish its roll in a circular donut motion, stopping it from flying too far away. As with some of the other dice we've already mentioned though, it does suffer from an issue that the polyhedral dice set has unique to it. 6s and 9s. The number 6 and the number 9, despite the nice number that they combine to create, are not elegant bedfellows. They're essentially 180-degree rotations of each other. An upside down 9 is a 6, and so on. When you're writing numbers out in a line, that isn't really a problem, but when those numbers can freely rotate around as you roll them, it's easy to mix up a 9 and a 6. The d10 is part of the group that wrestles with this problem. The simplest solution is to put a dot at the base of each number or even a line underneath, but these are not very visually appealing, are they? They can even infect other dice that have a 6 and no 9, a veritable plague. Not to mention that some D10s swap their number 10 for a 0, as if that isn't confusing. A lot of potential for the D10 that doesn't quite come out. Must do better. See me after class. Ah, the D6. The people's die, the salt of the gaming earth. When it comes to accessibility, this die reigns supreme. Like the humble deck of playing cards, it's difficult to not find a D6 in most homes. If you have a copy of Monopoly, Snakes and Ladders, Candyland, or whatever, you have at least one D6. They're everywhere. And what a perfect piece of design they are as well. Beautiful. The cubic shape match of a soft curved edge makes for a stellar and controlled roll. You can let it lightly fall off your palm and you'll still get a satisfying roll out of it. And it's a strong and sturdy cube. It's easy as pie to see which side shows the result. A completely flat plane, all other sides at a 90-degree angle or hidden underneath. There's no confusion when readying this die. Even when it's slightly cocked, you don't really have to do much detective work to figure out which side is the proper result. And when you come to gaze upon its smooth, flat sides to read your result, your eyes are treated to a masterful piece of graphic design that has stood the test of time for thousands of years. The pip. Whilst not all dice use the pip system, as it can make your D6 stand out from the rest of your polyhedral set, most D6s that come on their own use this beautiful, simple counting system. Instead of clunky typeface numbers printed on each side of your die, the pip system that you've absolutely seen before simply prints small dots to represent the count of the number rather than the symbol. If you roll a 5, you'll see 5 neatly arranged pips, and let me tell you, these things do not get enough praise. They transcend language. They tap into the pattern recognition parts of the human brain, meaning you can read them so much faster than your standard number. Even a small child who hasn't learned what a number 4 looks like, but can count to 4, is able to read these dice. That's how elegant this design is. A towering giant of a die, it has stood for time immemorial as the go-to die for all tabletop gaming. It commands respect, and honestly, putting it in second place is one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. But the truth is, despite how incredible this die is, despite all the things that make it stand the test of time, it suffers from one fatal flaw. It's just a bit boring. It's just a box at the end of the day, and whilst it is probably the best die in actuality, oh god no, this is an opinion. I'm having an opinion. Look, I know the D6 is probably the actual best die, but I just cannot express enough how much I love the D8. It takes all the frustrations I have with the D4 and just fixes all of them by doing the most obvious thing in the world, which is just to glue another D4 to the bottom. And I know that's not how this shape was made, but come on, that is just great. And look at the thing, it's just beautiful. That gorgeous diamond shape, the way it gently tumbles as it rolls, and most importantly, the way it moves away from the standard cuboid shape of the D6, allowing for more variance and interesting structure, but still manages to have those gorgeous flat standing positions. The offset diagonal flat edges just work so well and effortlessly, and yet it's such an interesting and elegant shape, like a lovely little Sims plumb bob or a precious stone. I'm just enamored with the D8, and I wish it got more love in general. I know I made a big joke about objective facts and blah 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 at the start of the video, but this die just has a special place in my heart, and I feel like we all have something similar. Whilst I'll argue that the D8 is in fact the best die to the absolute death on this arbitrary hill on which I've laid my deathbed, there's always going to be one type of die that means a lot to you, and it usually has absolutely no foundation in reality. So I'll tell you what, rather than arguing in the comments about what you think is best, I want to hear why you absolutely love one of your clicky-clacky math rocks. It doesn't have to be a type of die, it can just be a particular one that you have a fond memory with, or one that looks cool as hell. Tell me about them in the comments below right now. And if you want to argue about why I'm wrong, that's fine. Cast your meaningless arguments into the void, and I will simply not perceive them. I'm going to go live with the D8s in harmony now. If you want to see more of this stupid content, then please do subscribe to us here on Dicebreaker and click the bell icon to get notified whenever we put a new video live. You can even find more tabletop nonsense, including Alex Mean's version of this list that differs from my own on Dicebreaker.com. Links to that and all sorts of stuff, including our merch store, is in the description of this video. But most importantly, thank you so much for watching me shout about dice, and until I see you next, have a lovely day.